Humans have always been seen as an oddity within the vast galactic federation. While other species pride themselves on territorial expansion and violent conflict, humans occupy a different space. They are calm diplomats, deeply focused on peaceful pursuits such as scientific and technological innovation, economic trade, and cultural exchange. It's not that humans lack armies, every race does, but their military forces are nothing to brag about. While other species display their warships and heavily armed ground forces at summits, humanity sends negotiators and scientists. The consensus among galactic elites is clear. Humans are soft, friendly, efficient, and useful, but undeniably soft. The Tari Zulu ambassadors, known for their obsession with power and dominance, are particularly vocal about humanity's place in the Federation. They laugh at human ideals during council meetings, dismissing them as the naive dreams of idealists. According to the Tari, humanity is perfectly suited for trade deals and neutral diplomacy but has no place at the warriors' table. The Tekri, Ragnar, and Feral Bayfolk handle security and warfare while humans happily abstain, content to let others bear the burdens of conflict. Uden, a Bex general infamous for his brutal tactics, once summed it up: humans are not built for war. They lack the violence necessary to dominate in this galaxy. Behind closed doors, discussions about humanity are more reserved. Humans are tolerated, sometimes even admired for their technological contributions, but their apparent aversion to war marks them as outsiders in a galaxy shaped by conflict. Yet, whispers persist. Federation historians who study humanity's ancient past uncover a long and bloody history. From tribal skirmishes to world wars, humanity was once a species forged in the fires of conflict. They fought, killed, and conquered with a ferocity rivaling the fiercest races in the galaxy, one observer noted. But now they have changed. They've forgotten. Zula, a Tari ambassador, scoffs, whatever they were, they've left it behind. They believe themselves above war, and it makes them weak. Others wonder if this assumption is misguided. Perhaps humans don't fear war itself but rather what they might become if they return to it. The question lingers as a new threat emerges on the galaxy's edge. The Zoyo Dominion, a race of ruthless conquerors, emboldened by the Federation's hesitation. Testing defenses by targeting weaker species, the Zoyo turn their sights on a human colony at the fringe of Federation space. The Zoyo's attack is swift and brutal, leaving the colony in ruins. Entire communities are massacred, men, women, and children slaughtered without mercy. The images of the atrocity spread across the Federation within hours. At an emergency council meeting, the devastation is clear. This isn't just an attack, it's a declaration of war. While the Federation debates its response, humanity acts. Hours after receiving the news, Earth's reaction is immediate and absolute. "We will handle this ourselves," declares the human ambassador, his voice cold and resolute. The warmth that once defined humanity's interactions with the Federation is gone. No requests for aid are made. No deliberations. Just a stark promise. Humanity will respond. The Council is stunned. This was not the cooperative, pacifist humanity they knew. Within days, fleets of human warships, massive, advanced, and ominously efficient, mobilize for battle. Ground forces deploy in staggering numbers, their precision and discipline undeniable. The Federation watches in stunned silence as humanity transforms from diplomatic mediators to a calculated war machine. It becomes clear: humans were never weak. They simply chose peace. Now, enraged, something ancient and terrifying awakens within them. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembers what its historians warned. Humans are a species tempered by war, capable of violence that rivals even the fiercest galactic powers. Peace was a choice, not their nature. And now, that choice has been taken from them. The first human counterstrike is swift and devastating. Warships decimate Zoyo strongholds with surgical precision, reducing their forces to ash. On the ground, human soldiers, once underestimated, unleash tactics honed by centuries of forgotten warfare. The Zoyo, once so confident, face an enemy they did not anticipate. One unrelenting, calculating, and far more dangerous than they could have imagined. As the Federation watches humanity's response, a grim realization spreads. Humanity's power was never in their weapons, it was in their restraint. And now, that restraint is gone. The time for that had passed. The Zani had crossed a line that could never be undone. Now there was only one way to go. We have kept our true strength hidden for too long, General Harris said in a firm, calm voice, as he addressed the assembled military commanders. The Federation thinks they know us, but they don't. The Xenos think they can attack us without consequences. They are wrong. Around the room heads nodded in agreement. The Xenos had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed that humanity's containment was a sign of weakness. They had looked at Earth's contributions to the Federation and had only seen diplomacy, science, and commerce. They had never seen the other side of humanity. The side that had fought through millennia of wars and survived such brutal conflicts. That had reshaped the very fabric of human society. Activate the fleets Harris ordered firmly, all the fleets for centuries. The Earth had kept a secret. Its true military power had never been fully revealed. Not even to the Federation, the warships that patrolled the galaxy. The soldiers participating in joint peacekeeping operations were only a fraction of human power. The Earth had prepared for the possibility of galactic conflict a long time ago, even if the rest of the galaxy never knew about it. The real fleets hidden in stations, deep space missions, and secret orbital shipyards were about to be unleashed in a matter of hours. Colossal human warships began to mobilize. These were not the light frigates that the Federation was used to seeing. They were warships equipped with advanced weaponry with armor plating. They could withstand even the heaviest bombardment and engines that made them faster than anything else in the galaxy. Humans had spent centuries perfecting their military technology, ensuring that when the time came, they would be ready for anything and everything. Now that time had come. The Zion were still reveling in their victory over the human colony. They had no idea what was coming for them. Their forces were scattered throughout the galaxy. Their arrogance was blind to the possibility that humanity would respond with more than words. But while they celebrated, the human fleets enter hyperspace, moving with terrifying speed towards the territories occupied by the Xenos aboard one of the command ships. Admiral Kane stood before a tactical screen watching as his fleets were positioned. His face was expressionless, his countenance calm, but there was a fire in his eyes. That said much more. The Xenos wanted a war. He said in a low voice to his officers, "Well, we will give them one." The human fleet arrived in Zoyo space without warning. His ships left. From hyperspace directly over a heavily fortified Xeno world, one of its central planets. There was no diplomatic message or warning shots. The humans had made their decision as soon as the fleet was in position. They opened fire. The first wave of attacks was devastating. The human warships unleashed concentrated volleys of kinetic and energy-based weapons, piercing Zion defenses with brutal efficiency. Soyan planetary shields crumbled under the assault in a matter of minutes. Entire cities were reduced to rubble. Zion, accustomed to being the aggressor, rushed in. Respond, but their forces were too slow. Their fleets, scattered throughout the galaxy, could not mobilize fast enough to counter the human attack on the ground. The Xeno generals shouted orders trying to organize their defenses, but it was useless. The humans had arrived with overwhelming force, and there was no way to stop them. For the first time in generations, the Zion were the ones who fled in fear in the command center of his flagship. Admiral Kane watched the destruction unfold on the tactical screen. The Ziona resistance was faltering, just as they expected. They had never been prepared for a direct assault of this magnitude, and now they were paying the price. Kane's expression remained cold and focused. There was no satisfaction in this. Only the stark reality of what had to be done, the Xenos. They wanted to give us an example. He told his officers, "Now we will show you what happens when you provoke humanity." The fleet continued its bombardment, advancing methodically from one objective to the next, destroying Zoya military installations, shipyards and command centers. There would be no escape for the Soyano leadership. Every corner of their empire would feel the weight of humanity's fury. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as news of the human counterattack spread across the Federation Council, once so dismissive of the nation's military potential. Humanity was now caught in a deep unrest. This was not the humanity they knew. This was something different, something frightening. They had never understood how dangerous humans could be when pushed too far. At the end of the first day, the Zion core worlds were in ruins, their fleets decimated, their leaders dead or in hiding, the Zoyo Dominion. That was once a proud and unstoppable force that had been destroyed, and it had taken less than 24 hours to return to Earth. General Harry stood in a war room watching the reports come in. The message had been sent. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The Zion had learned that lesson the hard way, and the rest of the galaxy would never forget it. We never imagined what had hit them. The human retaliation was swift and relentless, each blow calculated to cause maximum effect. Entire Xeno strongholds were wiped out before they could react, and now the heart of their empire was crumbling at a rate they could not comprehend. The Federation, watching from a distance, could barely process what was happening. Humanity, long considered to be a lower power, had just dismantled one of the most feared military forces in the galaxy in a matter of days, but this was not a conventional war. It was not a prolonged fight of attrition, diplomacy, or negotiation. It was an efficient and terrifying clean extermination. The Soya army, despite its bluster, had begun to falter. Unwavering confidence had crumbled into panic as human fleets rampaged through their territory. The Xeno leadership, hidden in fortified bunkers on their remaining core planets, attempted to reorganize their forces, but the damage had already been done. They were losing control, and the worst thing was that they knew it. General Krax, architect of the initial massacre in the human colony, had retreated to his command ship, his mind boiling, as he tried to comprehend the magnitude of the disaster unfolding before him. His forces had been trained for war, conditioned to be ruthless conquerors, but they had never encountered anything like this. The humans were not only counterattacking, they were dominating the battlefield with an aggression and precision that left no room for counterattacks. The remaining fleets, balked Krax, to his officers, regroup in the new sector. We need to reinforce our defensive positions, but even as the words left his mouth, Krax knew it was a lie. There was no way to regroup. The humans had already anticipated every move. He could make every bastion he retreated to was reached within hours. Its defenses shattered by human forces. Before the Zion could even mount a proper counteroffensive on the battlefield. The human soldiers moved like shadows, not the forces of militia that had been massacred during the initial Soyan attack. These were highly trained warriors, specialized forces that had been held secret until humanity deemed the time was right, and now they had been unleashed. The Zion were no strangers to war. They had conquered countless worlds and subjugated many species, but they had never faced anything like it. Humans did not fight with fury or desperation. They fought with cold and calculated efficiency. Each human attack was precise. Each movement was part of a greater strategy that unfolded with terrifying rapidity on a world occupied by the Zion human forces, who landed en masse. Their armored figures marched through the rubble of what was once a proud Zoyo military outpost, methodically clearing any remaining opposition. The lean human war machines, the Zion soldiers who had been assigned to that place, barely had time to react before being annihilated in the air. It lit up with plasma fire, but the human soldiers moved with a discipline that shattered any illusion of a fair fight. They were faster, stronger, and more technologically advanced than the Zion had anticipated. This was no longer a fight for survival. A fleeing retreat, shouted a Zoyo commander, but his voice was drowned out by the chaos around him. His forces were being torn apart, not by overwhelming numbers, but by superior tactics and weaponry. The humans seemed to know their every move. Before they made them overtake them, the Xenos were at every turn in the command center of the human forces. Colonel Arden observed the battlefield from a holographic screen. His expression was indecipherable. His troops executed the battle plan with surgical precision, just as the Xenos had been trained. They had never expected them to. A species like humanity had such advanced military capabilities, but that was their mistake. Underestimating a race that had known war much more than they understood. They are breaking, Arden said calmly, observing the chaos. From a distance, just like we knew they would do it. The Zion, with all their pride and arrogance, had never faced an enemy that could adapt so quickly to their tactics. The human soldiers moved around the battlefield like predators, eliminating the Zon stragglers with ruthless efficiency. Zion soldiers, once feared throughout the galaxy, were now fleeing in terror, and not only were their forces collapsing. The Zion leadership, struggling to maintain control, was in total disarray. Their communications were being sabotaged, their lines of communication. Supply cut off, and every attempt to regroup was met with overwhelming human firepower. They had started this war with arrogance, believing that humanity would be an easy target, but now they were seeing the truth. Humanity was not a pacifist and weak race. They were something much worse, an ancient war machine that had lain dormant for too long on Earth. In the war rooms beneath the surface, the human leadership remained serene. The strategy had always been clear. Humanity had never wanted this war, but once provoked, they had no intention to lose. They had spent centuries preparing, knowing that one day the galaxy might push them too far, and that day had arrived. The Xenos had awakened a sleeping giant, and now they were facing the consequences across the galaxy. The news of humanity's sudden rise to power spreading like wildfire. Alien species that once scoffed at the idea of humans being a military force now watched in stunned silence as human fleets dominated the battlefield. The Federation, still reeling from the speed of the human counterattack, met. In an emergency session, Ambassador Zura, who had once dismissed humanity as soft, now sat in silence, her reptilian eyes narrowed as she watched the reports. She, like so many others, had been horribly wrong. Wrong. They are. A member of the Species Council whispered, his voice shaking with disbelief. How did we not see this coming? They have always been like this, Zura replied quietly but firmly. We just never pushed them enough to see it. The truth was evident to everyone. Now humanity, with all its diplomacy and cooperation, was a race forged in war. They had simply chosen not to show it, but now that choice had been taken away from them. Now the galaxy was seeing what happened when humans were forced to come into conflict, and it was terrifying. On the Xenos' homeworld, Crack stood in his command center, his eyes wide in disbelief, as the reports kept coming in. Every defensive line, every bastion was falling, his forces were being crushed, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. We underestimated him, he muttered, cracking his voice, barely audible. We thought they were weak. We were wrong. The humans had shattered the Zion military confidence, and now the Zions were going in every direction trying to escape the carnage, but there was nowhere to run. Humanity was approaching and would not stop until the Zion dominion was no more than a memory. In a matter of days, the Soyan Empire had crumbled, and the galaxy fell into an astonishing silence. Humans once seen as minor actors in the world. The galactic scene had revealed itself to be a force far greater than anyone had imagined, and now the galaxy would never forget them. The Zoyo domain was in ruins. What was once a vast empire feared and respected throughout the galaxy was now nothing more than the remains of scattered and smoking rubble. Their fleets had been annihilated, their planets occupied or reduced to ruins, and the Zoyo leadership, once so sure of their dominance, was now dead, captured, or hidden. The unstoppable force they believed themselves to be had been shattered. Beyond all possibility of recovery, humanity had achieved it with a ruthless efficiency that left the galaxy in a state of sop. The Zani, a race that prided itself on its military might and its incessant conquest of weaker civilizations, never had the slightest chance. They had believed that they could destroy a human colony and not face serious consequences. They had assumed that humanity, with its peaceful reputation, would surrender or seek help from the Federation. What they did not understand was that, in their arrogance, they triggered a transformation, a change that awakened something long dormant within the human race. In the halls of the Galactic Federation, there was silence. The images of the human war fleets breaking through the Zona defenses, as if they were made of paper, were transmitted throughout the galaxy. Each member had been unable to look away as the humans dismantled. The Zoyo army, with terrifying precision, what was once a quiet race, focused on diplomacy and trade, was revealed to be something far darker and far more dangerous back on Earth, the halls of war. They were at war. Now the initial shock of the Xeno attack had passed, and in its place was a grim realization that the galaxy would never again see humanity the same way. The leaders of Earth, men and women who had spent decades brokering peace and maintaining under control the most destructive potential of humanity. They were now in a position they never wanted to be in. In the most feared military superpower in the galaxy, General Harry stood in front of a tactical screen observing the latest reports. The last Zion strongholds had been annihilated. There was no resistance left. There were no enemy forces left to speak of. Everything was over. The Xenos are finished. Harris said quietly, his tone charged with a crushing reality. They will not recover from this. Around the table, other military leaders nodded in agreement. The threat. Ziona had been neutralized so completely that there was no doubt that there would be a resurgence. Humanity had made sure of that, but now there were other questions in the air. What would the galaxy do? Next, in response to Ziona's new position of power, for years, humanity had played the role of a quiet member of the Federation. They had contributed to peacekeeping efforts, diplomacy, and economic growth, but now, after what had happened to the Zion, they could no longer hide behind that. The rest of the galaxy knew what humans were truly capable of. Admiral Kane entered the room, his expression serious but calm. He had overseen much of the actions of the human fleet during the war, directing the attacks that had destroyed the galaxy. War machinery, Ziona's eyes met Harris's, and they both exchanged a silent understanding. The reports from the Federation are starting to come in, Kane said, taking a seat at the table. Most of them are cautious. Some species are completely terrified. They don't know what to think of us now, Harris. He exhaled slowly. They saw what we did. They saw what we are capable of, Ken nodded, and that scares them. We have been silent for so long, and now they see us as the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Some will want to form alliances. Others will see us as a threat. That was the reality of your current situation. Humanity had been forced to reveal their true strength, but in doing so they had altered the power dynamics of the entire galaxy. They were no longer a species that could be overlooked or dismissed. Now, every decision they made would be scrutinized, every move they made. It would be viewed with suspicion. We didn't want this war, Harris said in a low but firm voice, but we couldn't stand by and allow our people to be assailed. The Zani thought they could wipe us off the map, but they underestimated us. Now the rest of the galaxy knows what's going on. When they take us too far across the galaxy, the repercussions of the war were just beginning. Species that had once been friendly to the Xenos were now rushing to distance themselves from the shattered empire, fearful of what humanity might do. Next, even among the most powerful members of the Federation, there was unrest. The Tekri who had once mocked the supposed softness of humanity were now silent. The BEC, known for their brutal approach to war, had retreated to their own territories, their leaders unsure how to respond to this new reality at the heart of the Federation Council. The debates were already in full swing. Should humanity be washed for its decisive action, or should the elements be washed away for their overwhelming power? Some argued that humanity's victory had saved the galaxy from a growing Ziona threat. Others warned that humanity might now see itself above the rest of the galaxy and that its peaceful image was nothing more than a mask. Ambassador Zura, who had once been humanity's fiercest critic, was now in a difficult position. She had always spoken against human involvement in military affairs, believing that they lacked the strength to be a true power in the galaxy, but now after seeing what they had done to the Xenos, even she could not deny the truth. They are gods of the galaxy. Or, he muttered quietly, watching the debates unfold around him. They have been dormant for too long, but they are still gods. His words reflected the fear of many. In the council, humanity had shown restraint for centuries, but now that restraint had been shattered. The question was, would they come back to his peaceful way of being or the galaxy he had awakened, something that could never be contained again on Earth? Harry stood next to a window. Looking towards the distant stars, the galaxy was vast, and humanity's position in it had just changed too. He always knew that the road ahead would be difficult. There would be mistrust, fear, and possibly even new enemies, but one thing was certain: humanity would never be underestimated again. Come on, he whispered to himself. We have shown the galaxy who we are, but deep down, Harry knew that this victory had a price for humanity. They had been forced to reveal their darkest nature, and once unleashed, that part of them could not be easily hidden again. The galaxy would never see them as the peaceful diplomats they once were. They were now something else entirely. They were gods of war and the galaxy. I would remember it.